Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Whiskey Neat, spirited conversations with interesting people. I am your host, Kristopher Hart, and if you can't see this incredible background behind me, I'm sure you can, it's on camera, but if you're just listening, as many of our listeners do, I'm at Gulf Coast Distillers here in East Houston. This is the largest distillery in the state of Texas, from what I'm being told, from what I understand, and it's in Houston, and we've never talked about it. I don't know if that makes me a bad person or if it just underlines how low key they've been for the last couple of years. They have been churning away, knocking a tremendous amount of product out and into barrel and into market. It's kind of surprising what all has happened here the last 3 years, and we haven't talked about it. So I apologize for that. So Gulf Coast Distillers, they are a massive facility, and by that I mean look up the Uncle Ben's rice factory in Houston. That's where we're at now. I couldn't believe the size of this place. They've got 6 40,000 gallon fermenters. They have 3 pot stills, and 2 massive column stills from Maker's Mark. They have a brewery here where they're making beer. They own BJ's Vodka, which is a very kind of a well-known vodka company here in Houston. Is it BJ's? BJ Hookers? Is it BJ Hookers? Yeah. BJ. Sorry, I'm not. I've had quite a few, as you can see in front of me. They have been kind of like, I mentioned this earlier off air, like Pollos Hermanos. You ever watch Breaking Bad? And they've got this just a chicken restaurant, nothing to see here, and then there's a meth restaurant or a meth factory underneath the building. That's what's happening here. There's got to be money laundering happening. I have no idea what's going on. It's amazing. So I sat down with Hermen Key today, and a long-time recurring guest, Todd Grube, local mod of HBS. And if you're not sure what a mod is, this is an admin for a Facebook group, and this is my some family members I don't ever talk to anymore, and this is I don't know, just think of somebody, someone you hate. I'm trying to think of some names that's not Donald Trump, and it's not coming to mind. Let's just say someone you hate, your worst political leader, and then down here below the table are your HBS mods, and that's where Todd sits. Todd is a good friend of mine, and I honestly kind of look up to him in a lot of ways, and by that I mean I look down to him because he's a mod and he means nothing to me. But we're here, long story short, at Gulf Coast Distillers to taste through their current bottlings right now. This is a 100% grain to glass distillery here in Houston, and they're part of the Texas Whiskey Association. We talk a lot about the Texas Whiskey Association and the Texas Whiskey Trail. There's a lot of information in this episode. I hope that you get value out of it. I hope all of it makes sense. If you have follow-up questions, please let me know. There were some things we couldn't discuss. Non-disclosures are a very big part of this industry, so to our ads. This week's episode, as always, is sponsored by Terlato Distell Artisan Spirits, leader in premium artisan products like Bunnahabhain, Deanston, Ledaig, Tobermory, Bains, Black Bottle, and Scottish Leader. You can pick up the entire line at your local liquor store, or if you are a retailer, reach out to your local United Wine and Spirits rep. Belle Meade. I'm a huge fan of Belle Meade. We will be doing a lot with Belle Meade in the very near future. Please keep your eyes peeled for that. But this week's episode is also brought to you by Belle Meade. Aged to perfection, Belle Meade's Rye Bourbon portfolio offers a variety of taste-tempting expressions, including their award-winning sherry, Madeira, Cognac, Cask finishes, as well as their Classic Small Batch Bourbon and the new Cask Strength Reserve. This week's episode as well is sponsored by Balcones. We just spent an incredible time at Balcones Distillery with HBS, and I definitely want to give them a shout out, not just because they're sponsors of the show, but because we took 15 people up to their distillery. And typically, if you've ever been to a distillery, you pay a little fee, you get a tour, you try through their core expressions. That's not what happened. Balcones treated us like family. 15 of us went up there, drove 3.5, 4 hours, spent the entire day at their facility. They rolled out the red carpet. We tasted through 20 different barrels. It may have been 21 by the end of it. It was originally set for 19. We ended up hitting 21. It was insane. And we picked out 2 barrels, and we picked out kind of a third, but I'm trying not to overdo it. Saturation is something you have to be worried about. But we're trying to find a place for all 3 barrels here in the state of Texas. This is not your standard single malt expression. There's nothing wrong with the single malt expression, but we went for the bizarre, we went for the weird, we went for the interesting, we went for the not available to anyone else. And that is not an exaggeration. Everything we tasted has never been available to anyone else. No one else will have this, and no one will have it in the near future. We will be we will be bottling and bringing to market some great things that have never seen the light of day from Balcones, and I could not be more excited about it. Lastly, our last sponsor of the show is Sagamore Rye. You've heard me talk about Sagamore Rye. I'm a huge fan of Sagamore Rye. Our barrel pick we did that was a 110 proof, unfiltered, was just fantastic at $54. We're huge fans. Go out, try the Cask Strength. Go out, try the double barrel reserve. Try their port finish. Sagamore is fantastic. I think that pretty much covers everything. We beat it to death. So today I sit down with Hermen Key, their marketing lead for Gulf Coast Distillers, Todd Grube from HBS, moderator for the group and friend of mine. And without further ado, cheers. And this drops Saturday.
Awesome.
And this is your first. This will be your first.
I haven't had it.
No. But I mean, this is your first controversial pick as a mod, because there's like less than. I thought it was less than 70. It's like less than 60 bottles available, and for a group of 6,200.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
This is gonna sell out immediately, and there's gonna be complaints and
3 stores, right?
Yeah. So I'm eager to see how this turns out and how you get. Deal with.
It's going to be another case of the first 22 people in each line is going to get it, basically. Or how many? 80?
But here's the thing: there's less than 22 bottles coming to some of these stores.
Yeah.
So it's like if more than a dozen people show up at any location, it's going to get real sketchy real fast.
Because there's no limit.
No, it's one per person.
Oh, it is one. Okay.
It's one per person.
That'll help.
The only thing that we do as a consideration is there's. The Reservoir Dog series was 6 barrels, right, after each character. We made sure that those who helped pick it at least get their bottle. And Jesse Hernandez got his, Sean Jackson. So theirs are spoken for, right, but that comes out of that overall.
I guess that's what happens with Knob Creek at almost 15 years,
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be short.
And this is the old price. So price is going up like $15.
Wow.
And, well, there we go. And almost 15 years old for $45. You're not going to find that anywhere else.
Yeah.
And this is Jesse Hernandez, so if it tastes like shit, it's his fault.
All right, I understand.
Sorry.
How old is this? 15?
14 years, 11 months. 14 years, 11 months, $45. 120 proof.
I think the Knob Creek picks are some of the best values, for sure, even with the price increase.
Yeah. It's got a really generous middle. I mean, it's
nice.
It's very nice. It's very round.
I know that can't be entertaining to listen to audio-wise, but Hermen, thanks so much for coming.
And my pleasure. Thanks for inviting.
Todd,
yeah, thanks for having me.
Great to meet you.
Bit of a unique sitting situation today, but we're in this gorgeous, I want to say dining hall, but what would you call it? Valhalla?
I'd say the hall. It's going to be called Ben's Den. That's the name of it.
Ben's Den?
Because the old Uncle Ben's rice mill facility. So that's the name of this place. It's the tasting room's called Ben's Den.
Ben's Den's a great name, but I will also add that I don't think people realize, because I definitely didn't. I knew that you had some of the biggest stills in Texas, if not the biggest stills in Texas. But now I didn't realize how big the facility itself was.
Right.
This place is unbelievably massive. It's expansive. Right. You've got a brewery here. You've got a distillery here, and a coffee roaster as well. You guys are covering all of my vices and then some.
Right.
It's stunning, and I can't wait. When are you guys supposed to open?
Well, we're waiting on some permits, and we're shooting for the end of the month. We were just
because it being built 2020.
Exactly. No, I hope not. No, this place was built in 1944, so it's the old Uncle Ben's place, and so with that, when you retrofit everything to modernize it, to bring it up to code, there's a lot of permits and everything that had to be done. And so that took a while, and that's the delay, but we are shooting for the end of the month.
Yeah, I'm sure
so
you
we'll
can
be open.
I'm sure you can see it in the background, how far it goes back and just how big. I mean, when I drove by, as I mentioned, I drove by this place twice. I didn't believe that this could be it. And, I'm looking at this giant facility.
We got lost too. I didn't tell you yet, but me and Jack both circled the lot several times.
Well, now you can't miss it. Now that you know
I got a phone call.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned this off air, but this place is so, it's like, so the HBS and everything that's been happening in Houston's been happening for the past 4 or 5 years. You guys have been here. You are so big but kind of quiet. You're not
Right.
You're not causing too much of a stir. You're just kind of just killing it, right?
Right.
And when I got here, I just wasn't expecting. It's the biggest distillery in the state.
Sure, I think we are. I mean, we got the license, the permit in 2016, started cooking in 2017. So we've been around 2 years. So with that, with the huge investment that we have here, as you saw today, we're really looking to grow short-term and long-term. We've got our giant Texas whiskey that we're, making. That's our first one that we've done. But we're in it for the long haul. This is a family company. They're in it not for a turnaround and sell the label, create a label and sell the place. They're gonna, they're in for it for as long as, the other distilleries in the country have been in.
Sure.
And you can see the depth of inventory that we're gonna have and that we're gonna create, and the depth of investment that we have here in this building. It's not for the short term.
It's absurd. I'm doing very rough, ignorant estimations in my head, walking through the facility, seeing 6 of these brand new 40,000 gallon fermenters.
Right.
You've got 3 stills running. Just this place is. It's almost like someone won the Mega Millions and just gave all of that to building the distillery of their dreams. Right. It's like the Willy Wonka chocolate factory of distilleries.
I would say that it is.
In the heart of Houston.
Right.
And I had no idea. It was just this incredible.
I think Texas needed something like this, and it's an appropriate name. I keep using the word giant. It's just huge and awesome.
Yeah, no pun intended.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is a giant facility, and the pride that I have whenever I go out in the streets and push this brand, because I tell the story, but it'll really help once we open the place, because that way the public can come and see. I can talk about it, show pictures on a PowerPoint, tell them what it is, but you have to come here to really appreciate the depth of what we're doing here, the size of what we have, and the long term that we're in for. We're here to create some, really quality high-end spirits, for the state of Texas. We're the largest state. We're going to have the largest distillery. And so with that being said,
and that was the goal?
I think that was the goal. I know necessarily that we do have barrels that we're aging for the long term, and we do have some things that we do want to sell to other distilleries. And so in it for the long term, yes, but we also want to push our brands, our name brands that we have out there, because that's what pays the bills.
Sure.
And that's the whole name of the game.
How did they decide on this facility? Were there other places they were looked at before they decided to come here?
No, this was an original facility that the family had, and then what they did is they converted it to a distillery.
Okay.
It was, they're in the coffee business, and so they decided to start in the distillery business. The owner's young, he wants to get out there and make a name for himself. He's really easy to work with. And he's in it for the long term. He's got a family, and it's a 70-year-old family, 80-year-old family company. And so they're in it like 3rd, 4th generation. And, they're not about to create it and sell it. They're creating it and holding on to it for the long term.
And you guys, not on top of the, these 6 brand new fermenters, you've got 2 new column stills that came from Maker's Mark. I mean, they're huge.
Yeah,
I like the historical significance of that. Just saying the word Maker's Mark and the fact that David Pickerel was our mentor. He put them on the map. And so he came in and tasted the mash bills, and he's the one that did this, before he passed. We were one of his last consultations.
Yeah.
Right. Sure.
The columns just look like they soar into the sky. I mean, you can see the light from outside.
I didn't see the top of them.
It's just crazy.
Yeah, we have some photographers that are going to come out and take some perspective photos of that. That way folks can appreciate, when I say, hey, these came from Maker's Mark, look at these, and, with the photos will help. But them coming out and actually seeing it, that'll help as well.
And I remember asking this question, but I don't know if it was answered. How many barrels do you have currently aging?
We have quite a few. That's a lot.
Okay.
As you can see.
Sure.
I could give you a number, but, it'll be different tomorrow because we're always cooking.
Sure. And you guys run nonstop?
We run nonstop.
Year round?
Yeah. year round.
That's pretty
Yeah,
crazy.
they're here on
Wow.
Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah, I saw you have three stills. Well, besides the 2 column stills, 3
Right.
pot stills, but they're the Frankenstein of pot stills. And
Right.
in fact, they're affectionately known as the 3 Franks.
Right, Frank 1, Frank 2, Frank 3.
Frank 1, Frank 2, Frank 3.
Yeah.
So what's the story there? I mean, they were, if I'm not mistaken, before they were
They were evaporators.
evaporators.
And so the guy's an engineer, the guy that owns the place. So he said, I'm going to make it myself. So he created it. And inside the top, I don't know if you saw the
Yeah,
bubble,
yeah.
that's,
The bulb.
surround the bulb. That's covered in copper inside. That way, so that's what it is.
you can get that copper interaction.
Exactly.
Wow.
So that they're custom made. They're giant. I guess the capacity that he saw out there in the market wasn't what he wanted or what needed, and so he made it himself. So
And then 2 more. So you guys are looking to, what's your current capacity and what you're looking to make it as? Because when the new column stills get up and running, you're going to be pumping out whiskey a lot faster.
right, we are.
Is that? I mean, it's okay if you don't know the number, if you can't tell me the number.
Right.
There's a lot of big companies who are very hush hush about it.
Right.
But what do you put? How many barrels are you filling a day, and what are you looking to get to?
Well, the numbers, varies day to day. We're looking to be to where we can supply our brands plus supply other distilleries should they want. That way, the Texas distilled, bourbon can be put on the label, and that way it helps the industry overall. Because
I think you guys were in the running for the Devil's River thing. Like people were trying to speculate where they were, because so originally they were accused of not making whiskey here in Texas, and then he came on my show. He's like, "No, of course, yes, we make it from like 2 different distilleries
Right.
in Texas. We just don't have we used to because of capacity reasons." And the speculation was that you guys are actually it's so funny that knowing how the TTB screws things up sometimes. The annual list of permitted DSPs had Whitmire's DSP listed wrong.
really,
And so when you referenced the COLA approvals for Devil's River to the TTB, what do you call it? Like phone book of
Right.
DSPs, it said Whitmire's was distilling. And I texted Travis. I don't know if you've ever sat down with Travis, but
I have.
texted Travis immediately. I was like, dude, if HBS found out about this, like this would be like amazing. And then he's like, no, that's wrong. Our DSP is like all over our barrels. It was like 1 number off. DSP TX, 00016 or something versus
Right.
0017. But then the other speculation that was you guys. But obviously, from what I understand, there's quite a few. What do you call them? Cannot talk about. What are they called?
Non-disclosures.
non-disclosure. exactly.
But so, are there any people in Texas that you are making whiskey for that you can talk about?
Well, there's some distilleries that have purchased a few barrels from us,
Sure.
because they want to make sure that they can say distilled and bottled in Texas.
Sure. Now, is that something that would happen through a broker, or are you? I don't know. Are you able to do it within Texas? You can transfer DSP to DSP. Not a
Yeah,
problem.
they have to file for a transfer and bond,
Sure.
TIB, and once they get that done, they invoice it, PO it, and it's off. And I do that.
And your background here is actually pretty expansive because you started at.
Well, I worked at Gallo. I worked in retail in college, but I worked at Gallo for a couple of years here in Houston. And then I went to go work at Specs on the retail side, and I was there for 17 years. I was there when they had, I think it was 12 locations, and then when I left, they were at 160.
So did
Wow.
you start
So I
on
was
on the floor there, or did you start up at a higher level?
Well, a
have you
little
kinda
bit of
done
both.
all the jobs?
A little bit of both. I started on the floor, when I was going to law school here. I went to law school here for a couple of years. And then got moved up and then started doing like district manager and up the chain. And my last role was I helped open the Dallas market. I moved up there for a couple of years, opened all those locations. We bought the Centennial location, then converted all those to Specs. And then left them, came down here, and started working as a consultant, and then also had my import company. I had an import business and did some wines and some brandies from Spain that came
Sure.
in. And then Carlos, the owner here, he said, "Hey, I need somebody to help me come build the brand. We're almost to the capacity to where we can physically go out and push the brands, and that's where we are now. That's
So
what we have.
are
the
your
facility.
connections going to bring in any barrels like that for finishing at some point?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. Yeah.
Are y'all doing any finishes right now?
We're not currently. We are and we're not. There's some that we're doing some private ones that I can't speak about.
Sure.
But we are hopefully going to be doing that.
You plan to do finishes as part of your core line. You're just not
Right.
quite there yet.
Later on. We've been doing this for 2 years. We're at the capacity now where we can really market our brand.
Do you realize how? Sorry to interrupt you. Do you realize
That's
how explosive that is for 2 years for you to be at this size, this magnitude? How many labels are you making?
Well, currently we have these in front of us. We have some others that we're, Giant's
Sure.
our main one that we have, but we have Billy Banks. that's made here in Hickory Hill. Made here. We have the rye that we're going to taste today.
Sweet.
I'm just curious about, you mentioned about sourcing other Texas distilleries, because there are a lot of brands, or rather Texas brands, a lot of brands out there that say Texas, of course. And do you have any idea of what you think going forward? What percentage of what you're making here do you think will go out?
Well, it depends, because a lot of the distilleries, they want to make their own, where they are.
Sure.
And my sales pitch, if you want to call it that, is, every barrel to me is like a vine. Because I was in the wine business, I was a wine buyer, and that's what I did at Specs too. So every barrel to me is a vine, and Cabernet from Argentina tastes different than Cabernet from Bordeaux.
Sure.
Even though it's Cabernet,
Terroir,
it can be the terroir. So I say the terroir of a barrel is where it's aged. We can make it here, and it's going to take that micro-oxidation, like from everywhere, and it's going to take the characteristic of where it's aged. We're aging here in the Gulf Coast. It's going to taste different than something aged in the north. It's going to taste something aged in Midland. There's a small distillery out there that I'm talking to. So the barrel is going to take the life of where it's aged.
That's how Caribbean. That's how the Caribbean feels with European aging.
Correct.
A lot of them will send bulk source product to Europe, and then they get kind of mad when you're labeling it a Caribbean rum, even though it was aged in Europe.
Right. But that's what I say. So for in that capacity, selling to other distilleries, so they can call it a true Texas bourbon, is important to me. And I have a little bit of I don't want to say chip on my shoulder about that, but when I had my retail career for a while, I was in charge of doing the sets on some of the wine when we opened the locations.
Sure.
And there was a real popular Texas winery that was using Chilean Pinot Noir and French Merlot, and they wanted to keep them in the Texas section. And I was a little upset at that. I said, no, this is Vin de Pay juice that's going in the wine set for France. This is Chilean juice that's going with the Chilean section.
Is that the one in the box or the one in the big glass jar?
No, it was normal bottles. It's a Texas winery, real popular around here, but they were using not Texas juice, not Texas grapes. And so whenever the Texas Whiskey Association approached us and the Texas Whiskey Trail, that, philosophically, it rung my bell, because I'd already had that issue in my wine life. And I know for the long-term growth of Texas whiskeys, they need to be true to what they're saying on the label.
Sure.
If it says Texas, it needs to be made here.
Well, if you're in the Bourbon Society, you know that we have some evangelists on that front that
Super
are,
evangelists.
aggressively going after the brands that do that.
Right. So I know that. So I want to make sure that if there's those issues, and since we have the capacity that you saw today, we can alleviate any type of hiccups that they may have in their being true to the consumer aspect of the marketing.
Well, and you guys joined like that. It was like a flip of a coin. I mean, the week before the social, Spencer Whelan, who is, and Spencer, if you see this, I got to tell you, man, you're doing a fantastic job with the Texas Whiskey Trail, especially since, and I don't know that you know that I know this, but I've heard how you had to separate the Texas Whiskey Trail from the Texas Whiskey Association and everything that you're trying to do, but you've done such a fantastic job between you and your wife and the branding, the social media presence, the Whiskey Trail buying barrels. I mean, I gotta say, I often like to toot our own horn, but not as a point of bragging, but as a point of, there's a bit of butting head between on-premise and groups.
Sure.
But I gotta say that the person or the organization that's doing so much for Texas whiskey that I don't think is talked about enough is the Texas Whiskey Association. I think you guys are killing it.
Thank you.
Definitely people should join. And my hat's off to you for right before the social, you and I think Tawa Caro were like, yeah, look, we're grain to glass, we're honest, we're transparent, and we want to be a part of this movement for transparency.
Sure, and as you could see that you saw today, you saw the investment that we have in the facility. All that will be a bell and a whistle that we can leverage, I guess. But that being said, for marketing purposes, sure, that's
one way
there.
to put it, to leverage.
Well, it's going to be there. It's marketing. It's what we have, and we knew we're smart about the dollars that we're spending in that aspect. But we know also for the health of the industry, the Texas whiskey industry itself, it's healthy to be in that organization because it keeps it whole, keeps it real, and people want authenticity. And it keeps it authentic, and that's what philosophically, back to my old my retail background. I wanted to make sure that in this evolution of my career in the whiskey business, I want to make sure that it's philosophically with me, and I like that organization.
Every time I go into a Specs or a Total Wine, they have a Texas whiskey section. And honestly, most of the people that aren't as savvy that walk into those stores, they just come in and they say, I'm looking for a gift. I would like something Texas. And there's still so many on the shelf that, again, they're not distilling on their own. And I mean, it's great to hear what you guys are doing and kind of moving in that direction. And we can fill the shelves with actual Texas whiskey.
Right.
When people ask for it, that's what they're getting.
Right. And that's the name of the game, because I want to draw a bright line between, those that are doing it to market Texas in a negative way, which I'm, from Texas, 14th generation. I can trace my history back to the 1500s here in the state, long time. So people that are not true to what we are, puts a little craw on my neck, and it's like, I don't like it. It's a bad taste in my mouth.
And what's your official title here?
I'm the marketing manager, brand development guy. But basically I'm out in the streets meeting folks and talking about the brand just like today.
Sure.
And making sure that people know who we are. I've only been here 6 months, but now's the time to make sure that people know who we are. Like you guys today, coming in and seeing the facility, talking about it, and networking with, grassroots building like what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Because we could go out and market and buy billboards and, advertise in magazines, and, that's expensive. And yes, does it work? Sure.
And what is your plan? I mean, what outside of things like this, how are you going to get people here?
Well, we're redeveloping our website. We're redoing that. We're going to launch it on Facebook. We are going to do some advertising, and, brochures and all that, the whole bit.
Yeah.
But we want to get it done, word of mouth first, like this.
Sure.
This is word of mouth. Wow, you need to really see this place.
Well, we've seen the benefit to brands like Whitmeyer's and other local Texas distilleries to utilize social media in a way even beyond typical paid advertisements. The grassroots campaign, especially when you're doing it by the barrel, is a huge benefit. Do you guys have plans to do a barrel program?
Yeah, we have some barrel. Hopefully, I'm talking with a few retailers that they do want to do a barrel program. Come in, sample, pick it. We'll hold it for them, bottle it.
This is probably something I should ask off air, but I'm going to put you on the spot because it's fun. Have you guys ever considered doing a private label for HBS?
No, but we could.
Yeah, so I know you haven't considered that, but I've considered it.
Sure.
One thing that we've wanted to do for a while is potentially put out, statewide distribution of a full brand of our group. We wouldn't make any money on it, but maybe we work out something for charity to where whatever. But it would have our brand name on the logo, and since you guys already do that and you've got the facility, maybe we should have a discussion off air.
We can have a discussion like that, because we'd be more than happy to do that. Obviously, we have the capacity to do it. So.
We've talked about doing it. There's been some.
And are you talking choosing mash bill and things like that, or are you just taking one of their mash bills and doing something with it?
I mean,
a blend,
like most
barrel?
things we do, we have an idea that needs shaping.
Sure.
You find out what works and what doesn't work, and what's available to do and what's not available to do. When we have done the stuff that we've done, like this trip to Waco we just did, I think the relationships and the impact, the connection between, just to give you an example, one of the hardest things about your job, even before here, was just getting brands on the shelf at stores.
Yeah, that's a huge effort. I mean, you have to sell it 3-4 times.
And this may sound ugly, but I'm gonna say it. A great workaround that we have helped, and this is some stuff that people in the group do not see publicly, is we are the workaround and have been in the past with some brands. Instead of trying to force or send your salesman out to stores all over the city to get your product on the shelf, if we do a project with you that yields 60 cases, and then we just call our stores and have them bring that in, then it's saving you the trouble of having to pitch to a store.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? That little backdoor way of and that's that's what we're doing with Avanac. I mean, Avanac is a fantastic organic gin company here. We love the company, Kyle. We love the product, and it's hard being a startup just trying to get your stuff out there.
Right.
And we've helped. That's not to oversell our hand. I mean, we're not perfect. There's better ways and more tried and true ways of doing things. But if we can get 10 cases into a store that never carried your product.
Sure. No, it's an avenue to market.
It's a great, what's that word?
Avenue to market.
Oh, an avenue to market. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's a good entry point. I mean, I just from doing the gin at Avanac, we released ours, and then everyone was looking at their other products, got to taste their other products, bought their other products.
It's good product. I mean, listen, I don't, it takes something away from it whenever you promote something or try to do something like let's say you do 10 of these kind of special projects and 8 of them are just bad products and you just did them just to did them, then did them just to do them, then it kind of hurts everybody. But
Sure.
if you can find the right product and the right thing, I've always wanted, and we've talked to a few brokers on barrels to do a potential blend, but then you've got to do the bottling and the label design and through a DSP, blah 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 blah. But I think it would be great if we had that discussion, later.
We can do that.
But potentially doing something, because we've got the distributing connections. Both Favorite Brands and United, and one other one really want to do something like this with us, and I think it'd be fun.
Be awesome.
It'd be fun.
It'd be pretty cool. It'd be first, right?
Yeah.
So let's get down to it. Let's taste some stuff.
Okay.
Where do you want to start?
Well, we'll start off with our 80 proof.
Sure.
Kill this.
So this
Allergies are.
Want a different glass?
Yeah. No. That one's. Yeah, that one's great. I'll do a different one.
This is right at a year old. So the mash bill on the 3 that we're going to taste on the Giant, we're going to do Giant first, is exactly the same. 75 corn, 21 rye, 4 barley.
You said 3? You said 3 years?
Yeah, no,
1
this is
year.
about a year.
Oh, year. Okay.
No, the
That's 'cause you
3
said-
Giants.
Right. Okay.
It's got that waxy Texas note to it.
So the corn that we're getting comes from Waller County. So it's super local. The rye and the barley we had to source from other places, but we have found some sources here in Texas that we're going to be able to start buying from.
It's not a great market for rye or barley here in Texas.
Too hot.
It's got a great nose, though.
Yeah, it's got
Nice and sweet.
It's sweet. This is one of the ones that I really promote whenever I'm out at the locations like Specs or Total or some of the independents. A lot of the independents like this one because it retails for a really good price and it gets the introduction into something that's being made here. So I like it. It's young. A little on the sweet side.
It reminds me, there's a couple of great, and I know this kind of goes against the definition of vodka, but there's a couple of great vodka producers that distill at a little lower proof.
Yeah.
And the White Dog actually carries some flavor to it. It kind of reminds me of that. It's just like like not quite old enough to give you those really deep bourbon flavors, but still has like a ton of distillate flavor. Like
Sure.
the mash itself comes through.
No, and it's not, there's no GNS in it. There's some out there that have that. So it's whenever I tell folks that and try to educate them, when I'm doing the demos or the Whiskey 101 classes, they really go, oh, really? So they can
For those who
actually
don't
taste
know, GNS is grain neutral spirits or vodka.
it. Yeah. So then what we have here is the 91 proof, if y'all are ready to try it.
And this is the 80 proof?
This is the 80 proof that we just tried. That one's about a year old, 6 months to a year. And we proof it down here. So this is the 91 proof. This is the one that's it's won a lot of the awards. It got a double gold, San Francisco 2018. It got a 92 in Forbes. It recently got an 89 in Wine Enthusiast, which is pretty high, I think. Same mash bill, but this one, the age is about a year and a half. And so what I find in this is the rye really stands out to me, even though it's the same mash bill. I think it's just the aging.
Get a little bit more of the spice on the nose. It's similar, but
Yeah, that's my
And these are
favorite.
really prevalent. You guys have a good relationship with Total Wine.
Yeah.
Are they in specs at all?
Yeah, they are. At some of the locations, we wish they were in all of them.
Sure.
Because we are starting to market it with this facility. But I think some of the larger locations, the bigger footprint stores they have, they're in there. But yeah, Total's been a good partner. When they came into the state, they wanted to carry things that are made here or local. So that's their MO. Their MO.
Yeah,
exactly.
they're really big on that.
Yeah, they want to put everything that's local. So that's what they did. And that's why they carry us at all our locations.
yeah.
I was just at Total Wine earlier. A lot of people don't know, but when we do our barrel stickers, I tend to drive them all over the city and drop them off. And I've got one more stop to make today at the Total Wine in Willowbrook. So, but just in there, checking out their selection, and they've got a ton of you wouldn't call them independent labels, but what would you call them, like their store labels?
They're exclusive labels.
Sure, yeah.
Or they're control brands.
Control brands.
They're
yeah.
control brands.
There's some industry terminology there.
Yeah, there's control brands or exclusive labels, but they don't
Sure.
like the word exclusive, but they're control brands because when they hit the state, they go
It's all theirs.
It's all
Yeah,
theirs.
yeah.
Even
Yeah.
though you can get it, but they have to be out of stock or something.
Sure.
Yeah, they're controlled.
Yeah, that's the secret way of how some things work. And correct me if I'm wrong, so I'm just going to talk out of my butt for a minute. But with distributors, you can't legally tell a store they can't have something.
No.
So anything that hits the warehouse, including our private barrel picks, right? When they're in the warehouse, they basically invoice them to a store immediately, so that they're essentially spoken for or pre-sold. They just haven't been dropped off or picked up yet.
Right.
Which is how United Inspects works, which is how Total Wine works. They've got it's their brands,
Right.
and they're the ones behind making those brands even come to existence. But if they don't grab them all up, then sometimes you'll see some sneak out to market somewhere.
Sure. Yeah, I'll be into an independent store and I'll see a brand. I'm going, okay, that one must have passed through the invoicing and then when it got in there, because I'll see it and it's there. So.
I definitely like this a little bit more. It's 50% longer, just 6 months in barrel.
Right.
Big
Yeah, this is the winner.
Yeah.
Whenever I do the demonstrations, the fest, the socials all over the state, this is the one that folks come back for. They really
The
like
socials?
it. The socials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is
social.
that? Like a whiskey festival?
Yeah, the whiskey.
Oh, that's cool.
Exactly.
Yeah, the whiskey
one that's,
social.
how many years have been there?
5. So
Exactly.
for this year will be 5. So our
And it was our first, I think. that
yeah,
we
it was
did.
yours first. Yeah, and you again, you hit me up like that week of, and I was just kind of learning about you guys more.
Right.
And speaking of which, the Whiskey Social, for those listening, tickets will go on sale September 1st, first day of Bourbon Heritage Month, and we've got a few things in the works that I think people will be pretty excited about, including if you remember year 3, we did a Four Roses tasting where we tasted through all 10 recipes of Four Roses. We've got something in the works that might entail some really, really old Four Roses, the original Al Young bottle, which actually does contain some grain neutral spirit. It's not even that great of a whiskey, but because of the history and
I'd like to. That'd be fun.
Four Roses used to be garbage, just like the 40s, 50s. It was just not good whiskey. But they've come a long way, and they were obviously appealing to a certain audience.
Sure.
But they're fascinating bottles. And also, I'm really trying to make work, which I probably shouldn't even say it. I'm just going to say it anyways because I don't care. Is a decade, one bottle from each decade going back 100 years.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think it would be a 10 bottle
That's cool.
tasting would be cool, separate from the event.
Fun.
We'd have to figure out some logistics of that. But
Would you do different whiskeys, or would you try to grab something that you can fairly easily get, and just to see the difference between decades?
Going back 100 years, nothing's fairly easy to get. But what we would do is
Jack Daniels or something like that.
we'd probably go, 2000s. I guess we would have to do a something from this decade, right? The teens. And then getting back to the 70s is no problem. Then you get to the 60s and 50s, a little bit difficult. We may change it up. It may not all be bourbon. There's some really crazy, interesting scotch from the 40s that are pretty fun. And just to taste through going back to like 1919, 1920, something around there.
That'd be awesome.
Super fun.
So a 10 bottle tasting, but we'd have to do it because that's 10 bottles of alcohol. We'd have to do it probably the day before the event or a different day altogether.
Yeah, I have to say, like, even when you do the VIP, it's awesome and you get to get in early, but you also have a leg up on drinking on everybody else. It's
every year it gets
challenging.
better. Every year people are. So for years, Houston wasn't a great whiskey market, and they weren't great at knowing how to behave themselves. The average consumer, anything beyond your typical $2 you call it's on a Wednesday at some bar, right?
Right.
They were all doing shots of J&B and Coke or something. But I think the clientele, the consumer, the bar has been raised quite a bit the last couple of years, and they're a little bit more experienced in how to drink at these tastings and know how to handle themselves for the most part.
They're more sophisticated.
For the most part,
one
we
thing
had
that
one
some
woman
people
last year that was quite the headache. But
The one thing that I think some people forget, and it reminded me this year at the social, is that it's not all Houston Bourbon Society. I don't know what the percentage was, but
please speak up for the brands and the suppliers who hate the group.
it's not just the Houston Bourbon Society. In fact, I don't know what the percentage was, but there were so many people there that I didn't know. I was thinking, who are these people?
We do see a spike every year in we see both new members because there's the group sees 60 to 80 new people a week, but also we see people who are non-members.
Yeah.
And every year, the 2 or 3 days around the event, we see a spike in membership ads because they heard about it at the event.
Yeah.
It's a both hands massaging each other situation. Like they're both building off each other.
But I think the HBS people are just they get the warnings. Make sure you Uber. Make sure you drink a lot of water.
Right.
Don't
we
try
also
to drink
send
everything.
it to anyone who has a ticket. Like
Okay.
we sent several reminder emails, several social media posts.
You did do that.
It's going to happen. How many people were there this year?
This year was 1,300, and it's hard. There's going to be a window of error there because brands, they each get a number of comp tickets that they give out to their #1 accounts or whatever.
Sure.
So some aren't trackable, but right at around that
Still a big
1,300.
number.
I mean, it's as small as that number is compared to literally any of the other major festivals at
Yeah.
Chicago,
Yeah.
or it's still the largest in the state.
And I love that they had the Texas room this year, which
Right.
that was awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like that
Was
too.
that the first year that you did that?
Yes, well, that was because of Spencer Whelan. He said, "Look, it's our first year. We really want." They made the announcement of the existence on my show, and he's like, "We also want to." They had done something at another event that kind of got botched.
Right.
I don't know if you're familiar with the event I'm talking about.
He mentioned it to me, but I don't remember
Yeah.
exactly which
There
one.
was
but he
another
mentioned it.
event in a different city west of us, almost laterally, that that it just didn't quite go as it was supposed to.
Right.
And so I got with Spencer, and we really, really tried to make sure that Texas was featured, but there was a drawback. It was very well received by the consumer base. We had a lot of people posting in the group that
What,
they
the separate
love
room?
that they love the Texas room.
Okay.
A lot of people in HBS love the Texas room, but then there were a few other Texas brands who aren't a part of the Texas Whiskey Association that were like, "What the fuck?"
Well, then they need,
So-
they need to be.
Sorry. So it's like, well, it's not a slight against you
Right.
that this organization ordered it, and they bought the space,
Right.
And that's the thing to remember. They bought
Sure.
the space,
Oh,
right?
it came from them. They requested to do a special room.
Correct.
Okay.
Spence-
Oh,
the
okay.
whole reason we had a Texas Whiskey Association room was because Spencer and them wanted to really showcase
Our
the
whiskeys.
brands in Texas that are doing it as transparently and
Sure.
honestly and as forward as possible.
And can I say something about that?
Sure.
I liked being in that separate room because, once I walked into the larger room, immediately I could pick up on the peat. All the scotch that was open
Oh, really?
and all that. And it could,
I
me
love
being
that.
my wine background,
Sure.
it affects the flavor. So I
The phenolic
appreciated that.
compounds? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
I
yeah.
really appreciated the fact that we were separated because it would have affected the flavor of the whiskey, the taste of the whiskey, the nose of it. I mean, it really did.
Sure.
And
So-
shout out to a couple. Andalusia's not a sponsor of the show, but Balcones is. But Andalusia, they had a white rum that they did that was very well received.
Nice.
And I'm
I
super
don't think I had it.
117 proof, 100%
Oh,
made
wow.
in Texas. And it was very well received. Pasha, lost his mind over it. And Ty left me a bottle or sent one home with one of our members that went up there to visit them. That's what's so great about what's happening in Texas, which I'm sure it'll come out soon. But there's a Texas Monthly's doing an article about it. Did they come talk to you guys yet?
I don't know. They should have.
So their Texas Monthly's
They didn't.
got this guy who's doing an article specifically about the TXWA,
Mm-hmm.
what you guys are doing, all of your members. Talk to Dan Garrison, talk to me about what's happening, and I'm really excited to see what comes of this article because literally in the past year, between everything that Spencer's done, what everyone who's helped. Because Spencer, as great as he is, couldn't have done it without the brand supporting
No, I
the
know.
organization, right? Because-
Collaboration between
Correct. Yeah. What you guys are doing is literally changing the map in the face of Texas whiskey, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, and that's what we want to do because again, it speaks to me because it's protecting the brand, making sure that all ships rise when we're all doing well.
Sure.
And so
And that's the thing to keep in mind. Sorry to interrupt again.
that's okay.
You guys are competitors, and you're like, no, we're going to help each other out.
No, come on, we're Texans, right? We live, breathe, and eat here, and yeah, we're competing on the street. But you know what? At the end of the day, we're all friends because we're all Texans. And
Well, there's
most
plenty to go
important.
around.
There's plenty to go around.
No one's really. It's not a zero-sum pie here.
No, not at all.
My-
we'll just
my-
make the pie bigger.
Correct. Pie gets bigger. My debt increases. We're all spending
And we
quite a bit
appreciate
of money.
it.
And as somebody who's not from Texas, I'm from the Northeast. Coming here, it's just
Gross.
amazing how much pride there is among Texans, New Jersey and Philadelphia area.
Okay.
I've been here about 6 years though.
Okay.
I love Texas, but it's amazing the pride here and that everyone really cares about supporting local brands, and it's not something that you see in every state.
No.
It's there's something different here and that's special, I think.
That's why my feelings get hurt when douchebags like Adrian leave.
Yeah.
You're like, or Ben Songer,
Yeah,
a couple of
I
these
know.
members. Like we had
Charu.
these Charu Dadagalan. We spend these amazing trips going to Kentucky and doing the whiskey social and drinking together, and it feels almost like family. And then Adrian, Charu, they're all going to California. Ben went to somewhere stupid, and they leave Houston, and it feels almost
Yeah.
like a breakup.
Yeah.
So what's next?
What's next? We're going to do the 95 proof.
Okay.
This is the pot still.
This bottle. Did you get any jokes about that?
Yes.
What particular joke?
Well, what do you think it is?
I think it's some other uses for that thing.
That. No, we don't get those.
Bong bottle is what
Oh, yeah.
I was thinking
Exactly.
of.
Needs a hole. Yep.
So what's the specs on this?
This one is select barrels within the warehouse that, Julian, who you met, and the other guys.
Very nice guy, by the way.
Super, super smart. He's the magician that makes this happen. And so they select barrels that he feels are that flavor profile, regardless of the age.
So still about a year and a half, or
A year and a half, 6 months, depends on the barrel.
Oh,
so he
it just
goes around
depends on
and
a
tastes
great
the
barrel,
barrels.
yeah.
And if it tastes the way he thinks
I like
it
this
should
one
have
the
a profile.
most.
It's
got a lot of flavor.
It's got a super lot of flavor. I like the 91, but that 95, it's the most popular out there. I think, not only because of the bottle, the packaging is nice and different, but the juice inside the bottle is really
sure.
good.
So this is a mix of your two different. It's both mash bills.
No, it's just one mash bill.
Oh, it is
we have
one.
75,
Okay.
21, 4.
Okay.
But it's just select barrels that have
I get the rye a lot more on this.
Yeah, you can't pick it up, and it's
Yeah.
got a longer finish to me, a little bit old, little bit. There's more depth in there, and so he goes and they taste them, and if it matches what they want, whenever we're up for production, to make it happen.
Is this segment 4, by the way? Oh man, this flew by.
Is it already? Wow.
No, not quite yet. But we've got some time to knock out a few more before we leave.
Yeah, I want to taste the
Billy Blanks or the.
I want to taste the Hickory Hill Rye.
Okay.
I want to taste this, if that's okay with you guys.
Sure. Hey, listen, man, you're
Dump
pouring.
it.
I'm. It's okay with me.
This is one of the new ones that we've done, and for me, I mean, I like rye because it's a little bit drier. To me, it's like the Cabernet or Bordeaux of whiskey because it's drier, spicy, really, has a lot of characteristic. And the one we're making to me is really fat and heavy. It has a lot of oil, and people go, okay, some whiskeys are thin or middle or heavy. And I'm thinking, okay, it's like milk, the milk analogy. Some whiskeys are like a 2% milk. Others are like a full milk, generous. And then some whiskeys are not to the point of cream or heavy, but they do have that generous mouthfeel that really spreads on your tongue. It's not a linear flavor. It just kind of expands. It just expands. And I think our rye does.
So, you guys cover coffee, beer, whiskey, and recently acquired BJ Hooker's.
We have BJ Hooker's vodka, right? 100% winter wheat vodka.
Are you guys thinking about doing wine?
No wine. No wine right now.
I figured because of your background and the fact that this facility has more space than the White House. That,
Yeah,
what I mean?
no wine as of yet.
Gin? I mean, is there...
We're working on some
Yeah.
gins. We're working on some different brands. We have a brandy coming out. We're making a rum. The company also owns a sugar plant. So we're making sugar.
Jesus.
So there's plenty of.
I was just going to say, I'm surprised we don't see more rum. It's a question a lot of people ask is, with Texas being so hot, I know it's not the tropics, but why don't we see more Texas rum?
Well, we're about to.
Yeah,
I talked about this with Jared Hemstead from Balcones. I think, and with the guy at Texas Monthly, when you think of Texas, you think of cowboys.
Right.
When you think of cowboys, you think of saloons and whiskey.
Right.
But the climate here is so much more closely related to the Caribbean. You would think that Texas would have been a better rum state than a whiskey state.
Right.
Not that we're not doing whiskey fine, but we've definitely seen our uphill battles trying to figure out the Rubik's Cube of the terroir that is Texas climate and soil. But I think, besides Raylene and Balcones doing a short run of rum every now and again, it's not super done here very, very often. I bet it could be done very well.
Sure.
We're making it right now. We're
Is there
aging it
some
right
in
now.
barrel right now?
There's some in barrel right now, but
Oh,
we can't.
dang.
Yeah, I should have gotten a sample,
Okay.
but we don't have it yet. But we are going to have a rum here
That's
because
awesome.
we're in the Gulf Coast, it's tropics. So what do you think of this
rum is
rye?
becoming so popular.
What do you think
This
of
has
that
got a
rye?
little spice in there.
Yeah.
Isn't that? But don't you feel
That
the heaviness?
finish, the
Yeah.
dry finish.
It's heavy. It's oily, to me.
That's what is that? I'm trying to put my finger on it. Almost like
But to me, again, it's just that it's the heavy cream. It's not thin. It's not milk. It's just on the
Yeah,
heavier side
it
on the
is.
spectrum.
what's the price
It
on
is.
that?
That one is about $49.
See?
50.
Rye whiskey, 100 proof.
Distilled and bottled here.
What's a small batch for you guys? How many barrels?
Quite a few.
Yeah, that's a good response for everything I've asked so far.
Quite a few. So you like the rye's good.
I like the finish on the rye. It's got this dry, almost aromatic grain note to it, kind of like hay. When you exhale, you get kind of like a farm hay.
But it covers everything inside, all your
but
the nostrils, the mouth.
A farm hay without the smell of a farm. You know what I mean?
Right. Without the
without the livestock involved.
What's the story on the name?
Hickory Hill. Hickory Hill is a brand that was being made. They had a Kentucky label with Kentucky juice, but we wanted to put the rye in it. And Hickory, there's some hickory farms up in Kentucky, so we just used the name to bottle the rye because it already had some legs. Just the marketing. Hey, how can we get this to market quick as possible? Because sometimes that's the name of the game. How can we get it out there? The juice is good. The name, the marketing. Okay, that we use the name.
How old is it?
This one's a year and a half old.
It's so far what I've tasted, I think it's my favorite.
Yeah, but it's expansive.
It's I'm still tasting on the finish that long lingering finish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're going to bottle not the exact same juice, but similar in the Giant. We're about to do that. We're waiting on some last minute changes to the label, and it's going to be green label. It's like everybody wants that.
Sure,
green.
Everybody with rye is a green. Yeah.
Right.
Did you mention the mash bill?
On the rye?
Yeah.
It's 95.5.
Okay.
And you guys make it yourself?
We make it here.
Is everything you make grain to glass?
Everything we make here is grain to glass. All these right here that we have in front of us.
Wow.
Everything that we have here.
Can we taste the Billy Banks?
Sure, let's taste the Billy Banks.
I'm excited.
So the rye, let's do the Cask Strength.
Little Cask Strength punch in the mouth.
Not for me, please. Now this one I haven't had since we bottled it.
You gonna do food here?
We're gonna have food trucks outside. I think that'd be the best thing. We're not gonna have a kitchen or anything. We're gonna invite food trucks to come out and show their wares. Music, of course, yes. Yeah, we set up a sound stage. We're gonna have stages over here. We have speakers.
How old is this?
That's a year.
Single barrel Cask Strength bourbon whiskey, a year old, 56.5%.
About a year old.
I know you can't get it here. What's the price?
The price on that one is around $38, $39, but that one's only available. That's only available here at the tasting room.
It's only available here, but for $38 at Cask Strength, that's pretty tasty.
113 proof.
Right. It should be maybe 40. I mean, we really haven't decided, but it's going to be around there. What we're doing is that old classic thing. You put really good juice in a bottle at a really good price to get some market share.
Yeah.
It's the classic equation.
You'd think it's classic, but no one's doing it anymore.
Right.
Everyone's putting out 150 NDP, Kentucky Owl stolen
right.
stuff.
I see that all the time. But we want to do that the right way.
I think you absolutely could, especially in the right market with the right, no pun intended, but with the right soil, the right the right environment, the right climate for
$40 Texas distilled Cask Strength.
A massive local following for whiskey.
Right.
Good price, locally available, grain to glass, Texas whiskey. I mean, you're hitting all the right notes.
Right. And then and it's good. I mean, it's
yeah. And I forget sometimes. We talk a lot about some of these high price bottles, but I think most of the people that walk into the store to buy whiskey are looking for something under $40, 40 or under, or in that range.
30 to 40, I think, is a great sweet spot.
Right.
And if you can't hit 30 to 40, I think you're not looking long term enough.
Right.
I really don't mean to sling mud at Peerless. I love Peerless. I love Caleb, but their short-term goal was to make up their investment as much as possible, and then now they're starting to realize what is about to come out is a much lower-priced item, which is great. But the problem is that if you've got stores around town that actually have your first priced barrel. Like if you've got a store in town that's got some of their rye sitting around at 120,
it sits for a long time.
And now everything you're coming out with is cheaper. That means that store is going to get stuck with that. You know
right.
What I mean?
Yeah. It's going to get dust. It's going to be a dusty bottle.
I think that $30 to $40 spot is a great price point with a great following, great market share, and I think you guys are hitting it right. I mean, Total Wines, you guys are doing very well there, from what I understand.
Right. They're one of our number one customers.
Yeah.
I mean, we're wanting to expand. We're not one of those that want to put all our eggs in one basket.
Sure.
We want to make sure that we, share, our good juice with everybody, because it's a value. And we want to create the demand in the consumer. That way it gets pulled across their registers and creates profits for everybody. Because, these small business guys, independents, and everybody else, they're in it for the profits because that's how they pay the bills.
Sure.
And so we want to make sure that we're putting out good product that gets pulled through.
Of course.
So we can buy this here.
You could buy that here as soon as we open.
Yeah.
As soon as we open.
As soon as you open, wink, wink, wink,
Yeah.
or the camera gets turned off.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much covers it for today. That was a very fast 1 hour episode. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your time. This was fantastic.
Yeah. Well, thank you. My pleasure.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for
Yeah, it was
reaching out.
great. Yeah, thank
Appreciate
you.
you coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.